Soon, the United States Senate will take up the second impeachment of Donald Trump. We'll talk about it with Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow. And you'll meet Ellie Savitt, who has decided it will not be business as usual in the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office. Today is Sunday, January 31st, 2021, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. Today is January 31st, the last day of January. 1 year ago today, the United States Senate was laying the ground rules for the impeachment trial of President Trump. 1 year later, the United States Senate is taking up the very same task. Now, there are quite a few differences between the two impeachments. For starters, Donald Trump isn't the president right now, and to many, that is enough to make the proceedings rather foolhardy. A lot of Republicans in Congress say the whole thing is at odds with President Biden's articulated desire to bring the nation back together. Democrats, on the other hand, argue that we cannot possibly skip past the seditious attack on the nation's capital of January 6th. Coming up this morning, we're going to talk it over with Michigan Senior Senator Democrat Debbie Stabenow. We'll also ask her about whether the federal government can do anything to break the logjam on coronavirus vaccine availability. And for weeks now, I've been wanting to have a conversation with the new prosecutor in Washtenaw County. Clearly, Ellie Savitt sees a very different role for a prosecutor. It seems just about every week he's announced something that his office will no longer do. For example, they'll no longer request cash bail. He's doing away with the notion of zero tolerance policies. And he's not interested in charging cases involving sex and money transactions between consenting adults. Is he just deciding which laws he likes and which he doesn't? Or is he forging a new kind of criminal justice reform? We'll ask him that this morning on Flashpoint.
All right, we're going to start from the newsroom for a variety of reasons that I won't bore you with. The more important thing is that Senator Debbie Stabenow is in Washington and joining us today. Good to have her back with us again on Flashpoint. And Senator, I want to start with the fact that 1 week from tomorrow, you and your colleagues will take up the House case against President Trump. And I guess for starters, I just want to ask what your confidence level is that this is actually the legal and appropriate thing to try to do to impeach someone who is no longer in office.
Well, Devin, it's always great to be with you, and it's absolutely legal. This has happened before. And of course, the process started while he was president. Donald Trump was president, but this has been done before. And it is required for us to dispose of the impeachment article that was presented to us. So the trial is necessary to do. And it's interesting because it's unique. It's different than the impeachment regarding the Ukrainian call with the president and so on, where there were questions of what happened, what was said, you know, who was there, what was that. We're all witnesses. I mean, we were there. You know, nobody has to tell us what happened. We were there, and everyone has seen what the president at the time said. And there's no question in my mind in terms of his inflammatory language and the insurrection that occurred. And it was an attack on our Capitol and our democracy, trying to stop the recognition of the legal election that occurred for President of the United States.
The case that was presented in the House, though, included no witnesses and no what I think a normal court would refer to would suggest was evidence. Even in cut and dry cases where everybody knows that this guy robbed the bank, the due process means that evidence has to be presented. Did the House bungle that by not presenting witnesses and evidence in their effort to try to get this to the Senate as quickly as they could?
I think they handled this well, in that, again, this is a very different circumstance. You can talk to members of our House delegation who were trapped in the gallery with gas masks on, with Capitol Police, guns drawn, trying to protect them from people coming in through the gallery doors. And so everyone knows what happened. To me, it's a judgment of, do you believe that the President of the United States incited an insurrection and was the person that encouraged this effort to undermine our democracy and to stop the recognition of a duly counted election. I mean, there's a fundamental question. It's a different kind of question. And I think it's not like a court where you're debating, did a crime happen? What happened? Who was there? What did you see? The question is, was this right or wrong? Did it violate the Constitution?
But we don't really have a legal system that runs along the lines of, well, everybody knows what happened. I mean, don't we need to, for proper procedure and for the historical record, to actually have a case made against the president that so far hasn't been made, at least in a formal way?
Well, first of all, this is not a legal court, as you know. It's a
true
rules, and the House will present their case. The president, the former president, will have an opportunity to present his. We paused, even though under the Constitution, we could start. The day after we received the article of impeachment, we paused for 2 weeks for due process to give time for the former president to put together his case. And so he certainly can offer witnesses. The House can certainly do that as well. We'll see how this proceeds. But I would say that the evidence was in full view. What was said by the former president when he was president was all over the papers, the media, social media. We were there. We saw what happened. We saw the damage. We saw the deaths. I mean, right now, 6 deaths and counting the injuries to people. And it's a question of, is this serious enough to convict the person who instigated it?
Seeing that you only had 5 Republicans vote along, agreeing to proceeding with the proceedings, does this feel then like a futile thing? No matter how important you think it might be to carry out, does it feel like the president is not going to be convicted by the Senate?
Well, we have a responsibility to do our duty in terms of having the trial, disposing of the article of impeachment, and voting. And I think it will be tough to get to 2/3 of the Senate to convict. It is really up to whether or not the incoming now minority leader, Mitch McConnell, decides to move forward or not in terms of what it looked like he might do at the beginning. But regardless of that, we can't paper over this. I mean, this is someone fomenting violence and a revolution against the United States of America and our form of government. So to move on to heal the country, I believe you have to have accountability and you have to have justice.
Well, to speak to healing the country, though, I don't know how you feel about what your fellow Michigander Jerry Ford did years ago in pardoning Richard Nixon. But the argument then was made that, look, it was the best way to move forward. Joe Biden has talked about trying to bring everybody together, and some Republicans have said, well, you're not going to do that by trying to impeach this man who's no longer in office. Is there any argument to be made that it might be the best way for Democrats to reach their hand across the aisle?
We have a very divided country and divided state, and that's a very big concern of mine. But we don't address this by saying people who instigate violence and insurrection and death against the United States of America and our people should somehow not be held accountable. And I think it's very different. I mean, whatever happened with Richard Nixon, you know, he listened to Republican leaders who said to him, you need to step down, and did. And it was a very different situation than the violence, the destruction, the division that's been created by the big lie that somehow our election in the United States of America was not legal under our processes and democracy. This is a very, very different field. The impact's very different. And I believe we need to stand up and do everything we can to bring accountability and then reach across the aisle. I work with Republicans all the time, putting together a huge effort for food and farm and agriculture and the farm bill, and led the efforts on behavioral health And a lot of the pieces we've done on a bipartisan basis on health reform, the last COVID package, I was very, each of them I've been very involved in. So we talk about all the time.
In the moments that we have left, let's talk about coronavirus, which still I think remains the biggest problem on your plate. Even some might argue that impeachment's bigger than that. I don't know that it is to most Americans, and I think that we are starting to see this real disconnect and a problem with states like Michigan complaining that they can't get enough vaccine to get everybody vaccinated in a timely fashion. What can you do at the federal level to open up the logjam?
This is a really important question, Devin. And in fact, we all want our lives back. Our families want our lives back. And to do that, people have to be vaccinated and to be safe so we can open our businesses and our schools and so on. The Biden administration has this as their top priority. I think we all were shocked at how big a mess it was. We thought things were in a little better shape here on the vaccine side. We're proud that one of the major vaccines is in Kalamazoo, Michigan with Pfizer, and we thought things were in better shape. Clearly, the distribution systems, the accountability, the reporting was a terrible mess, but they're very focused on it. And their initial efforts, actually, every day now we're seeing so far about 90,000 fewer cases. I don't think that's by accident. I think it's because we have a president that is and a vice president that are indicating to people that we need to wear masks and we need to make sure we're taking this seriously and social distancing and so on. They're moving forward to get the vaccines out. There's still a tremendous amount of work to do, which is why we need this package. And the package is about vaccines and keeping people safe. It's about direct checks and financial help for folks to survive this. And it's about getting our kids back to school. And if we can do that, we will have turned this thing around and we'll begin to have our lives back.
Let's sure hope so. I got to leave it there. I got to get to a break. But Senator, it's always good to have you on Flashpoint. I know we'll be talking to you again very soon. Stay safe. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks.
You bet. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more on Flashpoint right after this.
Love lower than low prices? Then get more ways to save at Kroger, where you can find personalized coupons, weekly deals, and rewards like fuel points. All for prices that are lower than low. On food that's fresher than fresh. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
The environment is so friendly. Always feel like home.
We have so much support from the staff. You meet people who are like you.
I always had a passion to help others, so this is the perfect place for me.
You're not afraid to reach out. Flora Kiwang, Cameroon.
Maklit Shunga, Ethiopia.
Javed Khan, Bangladesh. Dennis Carrick, Bosnia and Herzegovina.
They give you what you need for the future.
Shopping for a home in today's market can be exhausting. Viewing homes and getting your offers rejected can get annoying. Now there's an easy way to shop for a home without the stress of having to sell yours first. Introducing YouPraise Offers. Enjoy the convenience of shopping for a home knowing that you have a cash offer waiting for you once you find your dream home. With YouPraise Offers, you can safely shop, and if you don't end up finding your dream home, you don't have to sell to YouPraise. Save time, save hassle, and home shop with the help of YouPraise.
2021. Fact is, we are all experiencing history in the making. These are moments that are going to be remembered and talked about for a lifetime. Thank you for trusting Local 4 and Click on Detroit to bring them to you. Welcome back. When Ellie Savitt won the election in November to be the Washtenaw County prosecutor, it seemed a fairly quiet change, to be honest, because he ran unopposed. Race didn't get a ton of attention because it wasn't really a race. Well, just a month into his new job, he's now getting attention from all over the country for the changes that he's putting in place in very short order. Everything from eliminating requests for cash bail to announcing he will not be prosecuting consensual sex work cases. very happy to have the new Washtenaw County prosecutor, Ellie Savitt, with us today on Flashpoint. Ellie, I'm wondering, so far, I mentioned you ran unopposed, so there wasn't obviously this big block against you to begin with, but what are you hearing so far with the changes that you've announced, some of which have been fairly eye-popping to people?
Sure. So just to give a little bit of context, I was unopposed in the general election, but we did have a heavily contested primary election in Washtenaw County, and a campaign that took about a year and a half. It was the first time the seat was open in nearly 30 years. And there has been a lot of energy in the community around criminal justice reform. So this is a continuation really of a lot of community conversations that have been going on, from certainly the start of the primary campaign, but also for years before that. One of the things that I feel very fortunate about here in Washtenaw County is that we have wonderful community partners, from law enforcement to the court system, to our public defender's office, and from our community activists. And a lot of this groundwork has already been laid, and folks have been advocating for this type of change for years now. What's happened now is the prosecutor's office is doing our important part, but we're not doing anything alone. We did all of this in partnership with the community. All the policies that we've been releasing have been the product of collaborative working groups, which have folks represented from law enforcement, survivors advocates, prosecutors, defense lawyers, civil liberty advocates and lawyers, neighborhood leaders, and the like. So the response has really been overwhelmingly positive, and I think it's a reflection not just of the fact that the groundwork has been laid here, that these conversations have been going on for a while, but also that we do everything in collaboration here, and we don't do anything alone. It's
a healthy thing. It feels like America is taking a new look at its criminal justice system, and I think that you've spent a lot of time, well, you were a civil rights attorney before this, so you've obviously spent a lot of time about trying to create a more equitable criminal justice outlook for your office. But when you start talking about things like doing away with cash bail, for example, that means that you will no longer request it. It's still up to a judge, though, correct? You need partners on the other side of this, don't you?
Of course. And, the judges ultimately make the final decision. Yeah. What we've said is we are no longer requesting cash bail. And in every case, we are going to be making recommendations to judges, and we have been doing this for the past month, that impose appropriate non-monetary conditions, up to and including potentially holding somebody without bail pre-trial while they're awaiting ultimately a disposition in their case. On cash bail, I want to be clear. Cash bail is a system in which you're held pending trial, not based on how much of a threat you pose to the community, but because of how much money you have in your bank account. Right. And all we've done is, from our perspective, taken money off the table and made sure that we are making an appropriate recommendation based on the actual danger that somebody poses.
You also know, though, that there are victims' rights groups who believe that sometimes in our efforts to get the Justice Department to bend over backwards for those on the wrong side of the law, that sometimes it comes at the expense of victims, and that some would suggest that this is a road to being soft on crime. I know you've heard that before. How do you generally respond to that?
Sure. So I'll say this. Number one, public safety and victims' rights are always front and center in my mind and in everything that we do. This is not soft on crime. This is smart on crime. Every single policy that we have released is backed by extensive data and extensive research, which show that it actually makes our community safer in the long run. I believe that, certain crimes especially require somebody to serve jail or prison time. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that what we know is that in a lot of cases, jail and prison can make something worse. And that's particularly true if somebody is dealing with a substance use issue, if they're dealing with a mental health issue. Yes. It is far better in the long run to address that problem at its root, to demand that somebody dealing with, say, a substance use issue or a mental health issue do the hard work to rehabilitate and to get better. And if you do that and they're successful, then you don't have future crimes. All of our policies are geared towards that outcome. we have to take stock of the fact that something bad happened in the criminal justice system. It's part of what we do, and absolutely for serious crimes, and your homicides, your sexual assault, when somebody is shooting at somebody else, serious property crimes, you may have demonstrated that you need to be separated from the community for a while. But equally important is that we're doing everything possible to prevent future crimes from happening. The best outcome is that somebody stops the path that they're on and doesn't commit any future crimes and create future victims. And everything that we're doing is geared towards that end.
Which all makes sense. But you also run into the criticism, I think, when you announced, for instance, you were no longer going to prosecute prostitution cases. I guess we'll say consensual prostitution cases. Those are still laws on the books. And there's going to be a criticism that you are basically legislating from your prosecutor's office, deciding which laws you like and which ones you don't.
Yeah, well, that's something that is baked into the criminal legal system. And I'll give you another example. Adultery is still illegal in the state of Michigan. It is a crime in the state of Michigan to commit adultery. I don't know a single prosecutor in the state of Michigan that would even consider bringing an adultery case because it is not in the interest of justice. Look, we have scarce resources. We cannot possibly prosecute every single law that is broken in Washtenaw County, and no prosecutor across the country prosecutes every single case and every single violation.
But if you stop prosecuting prostitution cases, are you then losing your inroad into working harder on the sex trafficking problem that we have? Don't you cut off some of your avenues for an issue like that one that you have said is really important?
Absolutely. And in fact, no, it's precisely the opposite. What we know is that when sex workers and victims of human trafficking in particular fear that they can be prosecuted as a result of coming to the police for help, if they are being trafficked themselves, if they know of somebody else that is being trafficked, if they know of somebody that committed sexual assault or physical assault, if they fear prosecution, they are less likely to come to the police and to report that very serious crime. The criminalization of sex work and the prosecution charges and bringing charges against folks who are engaged in that actually hampers law enforcement's ability to effectively respond to the really serious threat of human trafficking. So one of the reasons that I went so public with this is because I wanted to send a very public message. If you are being trafficked, if you are aware of people being trafficked, if you are the victim of a sexual assault or a physical assault, or if you know of somebody that is trafficking minors or is trying to purchase sex from minors, come to us. Go to the police. You have nothing to fear from prosecution. We will not turn around and prosecute you because you reported that.
Well, it's really fascinating what you're undertaking. We're watching along with so many around the rest of the country. I hope this is just the start of a number of conversations we'll have with you as you march these plans forward. Ellie, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much again for having me.
You bet. We'll take a quick break. Back with 3 and Out on Flashpoint in just a minute.
Welcome winter. Joe's Produce Gourmet Market in Livonia will create warm memories with a pot of homemade soup. Sit fireside with a warm cup of cocoa or smooth glass of wine. Joe's carefully selected tasty in-season produce, fresh seafood, succulent meats, homemade breads, and desserts. Shopping for the freshest and finest is now easier than ever. Delivered. Download our app or sign up online. Joe's Produce in Livonia also offers convenient curbside pickup.
DTE Energy customers can get their share of huge lifetime energy cost savings. How? By using our website. The Oslin's new programmable thermostat saved them a bundle. And their new efficient furnace earned them a hefty rebate. All over Michigan, people like the Oslins are saving. Why not you? There are always new ways to save at dteenergy.com/saveenergy. DTE Energy.
Visit GullingBloomfield.com and lease or buy your next vehicle online. Only at Gulling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bloomfield Hills. During the Start Something New sales event, take off in the 2021 Ram 1500 Bighorn Quad Cab 4x4 for only $269 a month employee, $319 friends and family. Or lease the 2021 Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab 4x4, now just $289 a month employee, $339 friends and family. You search, you request, we deliver to your home or office. Shop GullingBloomfield.com. Gulling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bloomfield Hills.
Monday, Local 4 News Today is kicking off Black History Month with a local change maker who is leading the charge to protect Michigan from COVID-19. Watch as Dr. Janae Caldoun reveals her thoughts on being the state's top doc. And hear her message for young African Americans Monday morning at 6:30. Plus,
we're taking you live inside restaurants as they reopen for the second time during this pandemic.
Monday on Local 4 News Today.
And finally this morning, let's go 3 and out. First, the governor delivered her State of the State address on Wednesday evening, just a few hours after the state Senate moved to block a number of her appointments and threatened to withhold school funding unless the governor starts sharing the decision-making regarding the pandemic. There was no mention of that, and in fact, very little in the speech to suggest much tension at all with GOP leaders in Lansing. But the GOP response the next day made the tension and frustration clear, and almost a year after Governor Whitmer's first orders on COVID, even with a kidnapping plot thrown into the mix, we appear to have arrived at a new stage in the fight for power at the state capitol. Second, a fascinating and terribly sad finding this week from the number crunchers at Bridge Magazine. We've reported quite a bit on the cruelty the pandemic has visited on nursing home residents, leaving them isolated from family, perhaps relying on strange visits through windows and FaceTime calls. Well, Bridge finds that deaths from Alzheimer's disease have jumped 18% over the last year, leading to a new piece of unfortunate wisdom for the affected families, that isolation kills. Lastly, pretty rough sledding right now for the 4 Detroit professional sports teams. Just pondering which of the Lions, Tigers, Red Wings, and Pistons is the best of the bunch is a pretty depressing exercise. But Detroit pizza is clearly moving to the top. It is, we're told, the fastest growing trend in American pizza. And just in time for Super Bowl viewing, Pizza Hut is even out with its own Detroit-style pizza. So a week from today, maybe that'll provide just a little Detroit superiority as the big game plays out. That's it for this morning. Meet the Press coming up next. Have a great week and safe week, and we'll see you next time for Flashpoint.